And we are learning new information tonight about the home explosion in Henderson County and the 2 men who were hurt.
The sheriff confirming today his office is no longer involved as the explosion is not believed to be criminal in nature.
News 13's Hannah McKenzie has more.
We're getting a closer look at what's left of the house on Morrill Drive just off Kyles Creek Road, and looking around, there's not much. It's a heartbreaking scene and tough to believe the 2 men inside that house at the time survived. From the Skyview 13 drone, you can see the extent of the destruction. At ground level, the scene more chilling. Clothing caught in tree limbs, personal belongings scorched, debris strewn as far as the eye can see. The 2-story home, once sitting atop this mountain on Morrill Drive, leveled by an explosion Wednesday. Family of the woman who owned the home telling us Thursday she wasn't there at the time, but a father and son who were staying with her miraculously survived. The men making it to neighbor Ronald Van Blarkum's house after digging themselves out of the rubble.
The younger of the 2 seemed to be in a little better mental shape than his dad was, both having their own individual injuries.
Bloody and injured, they looked like something out of a movie, he says.
For a split second, thought it was some kind of hoax or something.
Right now, both men being treated at a burn center in Augusta, Georgia.
I think they've got a long road ahead of them from my limited medical experience, but it was clear that their wounds were pretty severe.
Another neighbor putting several miles on her utility vehicle, shuttling first responders up and down the steep, winding single-lane dirt road. We're also told several pets are still missing, and at least one was killed in the blast. Investigators with the Henderson County Fire Marshal's office are still working to determine what caused the explosion. We'll keep you updated as soon as we learn more.
Buncombe County deputies are investigating 2 shooting deaths just hours apart.
The first happened at the Southwood Apartments on Christ School Road in Arden. The second several hours later at East Asheville Storage in Swannanoa. News 13's Kristen Aguirre has the latest on both cases.
One of the homicides happening here at Southwood Apartments in Arden. And authorities we spoke to today say it's very rare for Buncombe County to investigate 2 homicides at once.
It's the first that I have heard of. This is very, very rare that you would have 2 homicides within a couple of hours on the same day.
Buncombe County Sheriff Chief Deputy Herbert Blake saying the call for the first homicide came in at 8:30 a.m. Police responding here to Southwood Apartments off Christ School Road in Arden.
A victim found deceased in a vehicle.
Crime scene tape still up as detectives investigate what exactly happened to the victim, 29-year-old Kendrick Tavon Green. Little information released on this suspect.
Obviously, when we get these calls, we try to respond and we try to make an arrest and assure the community that these incidents are usually isolated, they're usually acquaintance, and it's very unfortunate, but people in 2020 and 2021 seem to want to solve issues with violence, with weapons.
Meanwhile, crime scene detectives also on scene in Swannanoa at East Asheville Storage, where 60-year-old Gregory Allen Gaines was killed. That call coming in just before 11 o'clock.
We are investigating a homicide at this time. It's active. We are in the process of identifying and locating a suspect or a person of interest.
That suspect, 6-year-old Randall Scott McCall, now in custody.
But apparently some sort of dispute.
The chief saying the 2 were acquaintances. McCall holding a lengthy rap sheet with arrests for theft, possession of drugs, and criminal trespassing. Right now, Chief Blake saying these 2 incidents are not related and are isolated incidents. Also saying an increase in gun violence isn't isolated here.
I think there's been an increase nationwide in homicides with guns. It's something that we're dealing with as a nation and as law enforcement, and it's very unfortunate. But yes, there have been increases in homicides.
The number of deaths from drug overdoses has increased nationally.
According to the CDC, there were an estimated 100,000 overdose deaths from April 2020 to April 2021. Fentanyl caused 2/3 of all drug overdose deaths in that time period. The CDC also says that drug overdoses now account for twice as many deaths as car crashes and shootings combined. Those numbers have local advocacy groups concerned about people here in our area.
News 13's Andrew James has a closer look at the numbers nationally and here locally.
This new data from the CDC is startling. The U.S. saw a 28% increase in overdose deaths. And I talked to a local nonprofit that's helping people get access and funding for overdose treatment.
We don't offer treatment. We don't offer medication or counseling. What we do is we help people pay for it.
Amy Upham is the director of the Eleanor Health Foundation, a nonprofit working to expand equitable access to recovery services. She tells me the nonprofit receives 20 to 30 applications a week for funding, and she wasn't surprised to see these new numbers from the CDC.
COVID hasn't gone away, isolation in many areas and the restrictions haven't gone away. The job market hasn't bounced back in for people who work at, say, retail or restaurants.
According to the CDC, overdose deaths from synthetic opioids, including fentanyl and meth, increased in the 12-month period ending in April 2021. There were also increases in cocaine deaths and natural and semi-synthetic opioids, including prescription pain medication. Upham tells me it's important to remember the people and families behind these numbers.
Maybe they got caught in a bad situation or they have an illness that they can't control all of the time.
Locally, she says there is some encouraging news as Buncombe County saw a 5% decrease in overdose deaths last year, and this trend seems to be continuing.
My mouth gaped open when I saw recently that our overdose ED visits for this year are down 7%. So overall, down 12% since the pandemic started.
She credits this to local investment in medication-assisted treatment, housing for the homeless, and harm reduction strategies. Upham tells me that the decreases that we're seeing locally are very rare across the state and country, and we'll have more on the resources that are available in Western North Carolina at WLOS.com.